Welcome. You are listening to Point One, Beyond Human Reality podcast with your host, author
S.S. Lopez and
Red Foster. That's me.
This podcast is a complement to the book with the same title, Beyond Human Reality, an innocent look into existence and the potential of being human.
This is episode 4. Both Sergio and I are celebrating the end of the first week of 2021 with a cold. Mm-hmm. So apologies for breathy, chesty voices. Sergio, how do you think on the post-production side? Are we going to get rid of it?
There is nothing that digital technology cannot do for you nowadays. You don't worry about that. We are going to, like people Photoshop pictures, we are going to audiophone pictures.
Yeah.
Of sound, of course.
Yes. So, but our apologies. Yes. We both felt a little under the weather. And of course, you know, what was the first thought in our heads? Is this it?
COVID.
ID.
9.
No COVID.
There is no regular flu. There are no colds. There are no whatever. There is only COVID-19.
Yeah. Of course, you invariably, your mind just goes there and you're like, is this it? Did the Rona get me? But in our case, we've really been hermiting, honestly, especially nowadays, because Spain is experiencing
the worst snowstorm in decades.
Yeah.
So we got... probably for our listeners in other parts of the globe. So in Spain, when we get 20 centimeters, we get collapsed roads, people trapped, and it doesn't sound like a really big problem if we go to countries like Austria and the Alps and all of this. But in Spain, is really, really a big problem.
Yeah, right now there's quite a few serious issues around the Madrid area, but yeah, it's, I guess everybody always just thinks sunny Spain and this, I mean, I have to say this is kind of unprecedented conditions. But yeah, 2021 certainly started off with a bang, and I mean, I didn't expect that at the stroke of midnight on the first things are magically going to be different, but I did hope, I guess, that I would have some sense of renewed energy to deal with the challenges of 2021.
I think we started strong. I mean, with this storm, this is absolutely fantastic. And then the, let's call it situation, for lack of a better expression, at the US Capitol building, followed by Trump's ban from social media platforms. I mean, definitely, 2021 has already shown us some teeth.
For sure. And then, of course, you know, the rise in numbers and the... Here in Spain, at least, there's some sort of delay with the vaccination campaign.
Correct.
Which is, I suppose, all very valid reasons why, you know, the logistics around it is difficult. Somebody explained to us the other day, right, Sergio, that there is a question of distribution lists.
Yes, this is because, okay, I'm going to be a little bit... I don't like to be cynical or sarcastic, but I'm going to be cynical and sarcastic here. It is because algorithms don't work as well here in Spain as in any other country. So it's very difficult for us to sort out what people deserve or they have to be vaccinated first. So our systems cannot sort out the people as well as in other countries.
I mean, based on their medical history. Based on who exactly. More urgently requires a vaccine.
Preconditions.
Exactly. So there is also an issue with data protection, which I find laughable in a way, because I mean,
well, now we have to keep, all the data protected, before, if people die as a consequence, so be it. So data is more important at the moment, data protection.
Yeah, I think this is all just a smokescreen, but Anyway, we're not talking about COVID today. Actually, we're talking about something I think we mentioned in our previous episode, in episode 3, that today we are going to talk about the 3 mantras.
That's right.
Yeah. So I don't know. In my mind, a mantra is something that we repeat often enough for it to have some sort of power for us, right? Something like a personal belief or a way to motivate ourselves or ground ourselves or calm ourselves. I think there are different mantras for different situations. And of course, this is not to be confused with a motto, but maybe it's a more personal inner thought or phrase that you use to bring you comfort and peace. And I don't know, something like, you got this, you can do this, or I will not let this get me down, But obviously, Sergio, mantras are something ancient and much, much more powerful than what I'm saying now, right? Tell us about that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, mantras have a very long tradition in Eastern philosophy and religion, especially in Hinduism and Buddhism. And mantras are described as syllables, words, or verses that are considered to possess mystical or spiritual efficacy. We have to say that most mantras are without apparent verbal meaning, but they are thought to have a profound underlying significance and are in effect distillations of spiritual wisdom. Repetition of or meditation on particular mantras can induce a trance-like state and can lead the participant to a higher level of spiritual awareness. Besides bringing this spiritual enlightenment, different kind of mantras I used to work other psychic or spiritual purposes, such as protecting oneself from evil psychic powers, for example. One of the most powerful and widely used mantras in Hinduism is the sacred syllable Om. Is this typical Om, right, that people use in order to induce this trance-like that we were talking before. And the principal mantra for Buddhism is Om Mani Padme Hum. And people just basically use them in order to basically distill this spiritual awareness and meditate and just reach higher levels of consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. So many of the most famous mantras are in words that perhaps we don't even necessarily know, where they come from. I'm saying words. As you say, they're more utterances, right? I can think of Hare Krishna or Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian mantra, which is so loaded with meaning without like having an explicit meaning. I think Ho'oponopono has to do with forgiveness and making things correct or different from what they are. And it's used for anything from conflict resolution to healing and acceptance. And there are, of course, modern mantras nowadays, ranging from spiritual ones to the downright hilarious. I don't know if you know, there's a little book called Very Modern Mantras by the author Dan Zevin. And it's just great. Like my personal favorite is, I will not lose my shit at Starbucks today, which to me is it's hilarious because it's just the epitome of like the postmodern world that we live in. But yes, basically, as we said, mantras are just this phrase or utterance that you either verbalize or internalize, but that has power and that has some sort of way of affecting or that has an effect on your affective state. Am I right?
I would say so.
Yeah.
That has an effect on how you perceive things. And this is exactly why we are talking about mantras. But in my humble opinion, it's already a while that Western ideologies, and we are going to talk about ideologies at length in our show, that these ideologies discover the power of mantras. Every single ideology is based on these mantras or these short utterances or words or syllables or mottos. We call them mottos actually. And if you even look at certain for example, the Declaration of Independence of the United States, or for example, the motto of the Republic of France, we have, I just say, a little bit of it. So if you look at the Declaration of Independence in 1776, so you have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a well-known phrase, right? So this is basically a mantra. And this is exactly what we are gonna based on our three mantras. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That it's basically the mantra that is dominating the Western world.
Yeah, and not just the United States. I mean, even though we are not Americans and we don't necessarily have it as prominent in our minds, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, some version of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is that's what we feel we deserve, and we feel this is what we aspire to. And so, you may not think of those three words in that exact order, but as Western in Western modern societies, we feel that this is the ultimate expression of achievement and
I completely agree. Is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Is the pinnacle of our culture, and it is the product that we are exporting to the world, and it is exactly this product, the one that is giving us the upper hand in the economical sense. So we are turning into, so the West is the economic power.
Yes, and everybody literally idolize this in Western countries. We have immigration crisis because people buy into the idea that in these countries, in Europe and in North America, life is better because of these three, let's say, pillars of democracy.
I agree with that. We can see, and we are going to talk at length as well in future shows, that while in the East they have a huge manufacturing power, it is here in the West that we are dealing with all these concepts that we culturally manipulate and then
export.
We export. And our three mantras are based on these ideas, right?
So once again, we ask the question, how do we know what life, liberty, and happiness are? What are these things? Because I think if you ask, any person, you'll get that number of different answers. Like,
we have a mantra for that. It's not part of the three, but we have another mantra. And the mantra tells us that we are equipped with reason. Therefore, we are rational. We are rational, therefore we possess intelligence. Because we possess intelligence, we have access to knowledge. And finally, possessing knowledge means
that we know. Yeah.
And this is exactly the way how we know on how we explain what life, liberty, and happiness are.
So in last week's episode, we talked at length about reason. So if you haven't listened to that, maybe you would like to go back. We talked about Descartes and the meaning of reason and what it is. And we talked about the theory of progress. So this episode kind of follows on from that. But why don't you continue to talk us through the three mantras, Serge?
So we were talking last week, exactly as you said, that measure it's very, very important. And the first mantra And of course, it has to do with life.
Mm-hmm.
And it would tell us something like, if I have the financial means,
Mm-hmm.
I live longer.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I am healthier.
Mm-hmm.
I have more to eat, more to drink, more people to have sex with, more space to live in, and I possess more things than ever. That would be basically our first mantra.
It's so interesting that you're saying, if I have the financial means, I live longer and therefore I am healthier. It feels just counterintuitive, not counterintuitive, but it feels like there's no correlation between those things. But then from this perspective, you're right. We have an abundance of resources that make our lives certainly more sustainable, more to eat, more to drink, shelter, access to
Correct.
better and, safe shelter and all the commodities that we think that we need to live a long and convenient life.
Exactly. If you look at our lives, what we basically look for, first of all, is money.
Mm-hmm.
And money and money and money. And we believe that possessing money is going to give us access to the most needed energy and to the most needed medical services,
Resources that we need, yeah. Even if you're not actively looking for money, we are all, yes, we all have jobs and our jobs take up an enormous amount of our time, of our waking hours. And we do that presumably because we need an income.
We are looking for financial security.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the first mantra that we live for. Mantra number 2, it would have to do with liberty.
Mm-hmm.
We tell ourselves, I am in no war or in no chaotic environment with a vacuum in power. Therefore, I am free.
Gosh, well, I mean, that's a very interesting thing you're saying, because right now the United States, it's not that they're experiencing a vacuum in power per se, but isn't it just, yeah.
I don't know if we could call it a chaotic environment.
Yes, and it's definitely not a war zone. I see what you mean, but yes, there, you're absolutely right. We don't live under these real adverse conditions of war and conflict and extreme violence, and therefore we must be free, right?
And it continues with, I am in no openly dictatorial or tyrannical regime, therefore I am free.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one would be, I have the same rights, therefore I am free.
The same rights as
Anybody else?
Everybody around me, at least on paper.
Well, at least on paper, yes, because we have our constitutions. And the constitution says that, we all have, or we should enjoy the same equal rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that would be mantra number 2. So if we go to number 3, that it has to do with happiness, then we could tell ourselves, it's not that we tell ourselves, because I live longer, I am healthier, have more to eat, more to drink, more people to have sex with, more space to live in, and I possess more things than ever. And because I am free and I enjoy liberty, consequently, I am happy.
Okay, so in this case, it's literally 1 + 2 = 3. You were saying that, mantra number 1 is I'm healthier, I live longer. Mantra number 2 is I'm free. So in a sense, what you're saying is life,
therefore,
and freedom equals happiness.
A little bit compressed.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, simplified, but in my opinion, this product is very, very well marketed and very, very well wrapped.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, just a reminder that we're talking here about the top of the pyramid. And of course, we have people who do not live longer and who do not have sufficient access to resources and who do, in fact, live in war zones. So suffering from bigotry and discrimination, and, that they don't have access to education the way we do, and that they are praise of misery. So
absolutely, not everybody is enjoying the same kind of conditions that we were able to make for ourselves in Western countries, which are not perfect, but definitely are an improvement.
Yet I think that happiness is a mantra that even that every country in the world, that people everywhere would follow.
Is universal. Yeah, I agree with that. That is absolutely universal, and in every culture interprets in a different way life and liberty as well.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Certainly.
So what we could do is we could now talk a little bit about all these mantras, and we could start talking a little bit about knowledge.
Yeah.
And once again, we talked in the last episode, but it is very important to keep in mind that knowing is not the same as understanding. And we are a culture based on knowledge and not understanding. So we really like to accumulate lots and lots and lots and lots of what we call facts. And we really believe that we understand how things work, but it's very difficult for us. It doesn't matter how many things we know. It is important to know things, of course, but they are not the same as being able to connect the dots to make sense.
Truly understand them. Yeah. So knowledge is the foundation of understanding, but many people we don't often we don't make that connection.
It would be like a part, like an element of understanding, right? So that would be the first thing that we should talk about. So knowledge is not the same as understanding, and this is already a problem in our cultures. And then when we are talking about mantra 1, this mantra tends to ignore I'm going to say human universal nature, because we really have to realize that the longer we live, the more fearful of death we get.
Yeah.
And if you really look at it, the more we eat, the hungrier we get. The more we drink, the thirstier we get. The more sex we have, the more aroused we get. The more things we possess, the more things we need.
Or we think we need.
And finally, the happier we are, the more scared we get, because we are scared of losing that happiness.
Yeah. And it's almost like waiting for the other shoe to drop. You are I definitely identify with this feeling. Sometimes I'm like, gosh, it's going really well. I wonder when things are going to go wrong. Yeah.
Things are going so well that something has to happen soon. And it's like Damocles sword. You never know, and you never enjoy, your own happiness. That is why progress is like a hill, right? In which human beings resemble snowballs falling.
Yeah, rolling down the hill. Accumulating snow.
Accumulating snow. So we are bottomless pits. And if we are unrestrained, we behave like black holes. Nothing is enough. And more, unfortunately, is not always better.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be mantra 1. And what can we say about mantra 2? Actually, if you look at liberty and you pay attention, so liberty is defined as a state of freedom. And this state of freedom is especially opposed to political subjection, imprisonment, or slavery, which I find absolutely fair. So we conceived liberty as this freedom from political suggestion, imprisonment, and slavery, and we basically divert it into political and civil liberty. And when we talk about civil liberty, we basically refer to the absence or arbitrary restraints and the assurance of a body of civil rights, what we call it equal rights, and
the constitutions or our Bill of Rights,
Bill of Rights, statutes, and so on and so forth. But, and now we can talk just very shortly again about the capital. We have to keep in mind that such liberty is consistent with regulation and restrictions imposed by law for
the common good.
The common good.
Yeah. There's, we all subscribe to a rule of law and a system of law, and within this system of law, we have our civil liberty, but nobody should be above those rules. Isn't it like the lines on a tennis court or the lines on a basketball court, right? You, within those lines, you do what you need to do, and but once you're out of bounds, then you're out of bounds. And I think that this is exactly the thing that so many people have problems with right now.
Punishment and retribution.
Yes.
So we basically believe that we are limitless, and this is definitely one of the problems. And I have to say, one of the problems that we are experiencing in our Western, highly industrialized societies is that, especially after this First World War, liberty has been increasingly defined in terms of economic opportunity and security. And this is what we were talking in Mantra 1.
Yes, as opposed to a system under which you don't have the right to economic opportunity and security and, such as communism or socialism. Yeah.
Which is exactly when we started to emphasize these terms, just because of the existence of these proletarian and socialist movements.
Yeah, and then as a result is democracy became the system that every country aspired to. And if you want to fall into the first world club and you want to fall into a club that exports these things as a product, as we said before, then democracy is the very basic requirement to be in the club. Yeah.
So you basically need to be a democratic country. Or what I find a little bit funny, free democratic system.
Yeah.
We put free on everything before or after. We really love it. But if we look at this mantra, being in a safe environment with no war, chaos, or tyranny, in what we call democracy, with all the rights, even if we have all the rights in the universe, we really have to understand that this
does not make us free.
It does not make us free.
The conditions are there, but it doesn't automatically mean that we are free.
In my opinion, living longer, being free to think what I want, say what I really want, do what I want, and finally having a shot at happiness, these things are not goals to be pursued. Rather, they are side effects or byproducts of a thorough and proper understanding of our own nature, of human nature. And with that understanding is the true acceptance of the idea that we may be individuals, but we are not separate from our environment and those around us.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how much we repeat the mantra that we don't need anyone or anything, it simply isn't true. We can never be truly independent from others, or at least our environment. And perhaps when we start accepting and embracing the idea that my life and my freedom and my happiness is intricately woven into that of the people around me, maybe that is when we have a shot at making the world a better place for everyone.
we cannot forget that we are social living beings. We need others and the environment to thrive and to live in harmony. Clearly, we are limited, not only by our build, but by others and the immediate environment we live in.
Well, yeah, you say we are limited by them, but I mean, if you want to look at it from the positive side, those are also the very things that can empower us and push us up. And
access to the commons.
Exactly. I know that the concept and repercussions of the idea of individuality is something very central to the book, and in the future we'll definitely talk about it much more in the show. But for now, Sergio, do you have anything to add about individuality?
We take the people around us for granted, and I think that that's a very big mistake. And here I'm not talking necessarily about people who provide essential services and make the world go around. I am talking about people we seemingly love and call our people, our tribe, our community.
Yeah, I see. I think I see what you mean. It's, I mean, it's, I don't want to say it's forgivable or normal or understandable that we take those who are degrees removed from us for granted until we need them, of course. But to take for granted the immediate people around us, you know, your parents, your partner, your children, your neighbors,
friends,
yeah, exactly,
neighbors. And the problem is that when we take for granted people, they disappear.
Yeah,
this is one of the human effects of taking for granted things.
Yes, and as we said last week, we talked about, like, you know, humanism and being in the, which is such a contradictory term, humanism, but humanism really focuses on me as the center of my own universe, and everything else sort of fades out around me, including those I most love. And I think it's inadvertent. I don't think we want that to happen. But, you know, when we busy ourselves with the things of the individual, and by extension, the things of the mantras, my life, my happiness, my freedom, then just the light shines so brightly in the center that everything else is sort of just fading into darkness.
Paradoxically enough, and following with what you are saying, humanism puts the human in the center, but at the same time, this human is responsible for the rest of humanity.
True.
But in the process, we take for granted the rest of humanity and the rest of the universe, and we see only ourselves. And that's why exactly we are always talking about we really need to understand our own nature, because those are, again, side effects of our own humanism and our enlightenment. And we end not paying attention or understanding people's suffering. Because we buy into individuality and think that every rational individual has not only the right but the capacity to freely choose their fate. And this is exactly the problem. If we push away the responsibility for others, we just buy into the idea of individuality more and more and more. And it is a very convenient tool. Perhaps the most powerful trump card, the powers that we hold up their sleeves. When each individual takes responsibility for themselves and every individual part retains personal accountability, the machine stays very well oiled and goes like clockwork. Yeah,
I mean, it's absolutely convenient for a system to be like that. Yeah.
So it's no wonder that slowly but surely communal well-being is deprioritized.
Well, except maybe when it suits the system, for example, around election time.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, that's we are all is all about community.
Yeah.
At that very moment. For the rest of the time, there is no focus on the system as a whole because it is simply not efficient or manageable.
Yeah.
Inevitably, this brings alienation from our nature, our work, our meaning, ourselves, and others. And this is a source of serious distress and pain for us. But as we have been saying, we promise that we are going to talk a lot about this in the future.
Mm-hmm.
For now, I would just like to say that having a mantra can be really important and a useful tool, especially on a personal level. We all need to do what we have to stay sane, healthy, and grounded.
Yes, now more than ever, because we certainly live in unprecedented times of stress and confusion. And I find that on a personal level, like you said, I need to make a concerted effort to stay focused and well and just do what I have to.
Yes, but I'm not really talking about these small, intimate mantras or self-talk. Like I said at the end of the previous episode, we have to be very vigilant and critical about the mantras we accept, especially the universal large-scale ones, like I need to live a longer, more productive life and be completely free in order to be happy. And perhaps we should start exploring different mantras, such as I need to understand myself and my life within the context of everything and everyone around me. And when I do, I will be better able to live moment by moment. Whatever you decide resonates with you when you think about it, the most important point is to actually take some time to stop and observe the things we tell ourselves. And you have to decide for yourself what it is that you believe in, but let it be your informed choice and not the choice or the opinion or the idea from anybody else. I am simply encouraging each and every one of you to ask questions. That's all.
That's all? Well,
that's all.
That sounds like Nick Nolte's character from The Mandalorian. I have spoken.
I love the guy.
Me too. I like that. Right. So that's all. If you haven't yet, find us on social media at SS Lopez Author or look for 0.1 Beyond Human Reality. And why don't you tell us what your personal mantras are? It would be really lovely to hear from you and to hear what are those little phrases that you use to get yourself through the day, through the weeks, through this time. It'd be nice to interact with you guys. Have a wonderful week ahead and stay safe, stay warm or cool wherever you are in the Southern Hemisphere, maybe. And we'll catch you next week.
We'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good time.